New gardener arrives for work with baby on her back. Young millionaire sees her and does something unbelievable. The iron gate of the Pierce estate groaned as Maya Brooks pushed it open with her shoulder, balancing a worn-out backpack and holding the baby strapped to her chest tightly. It was 6 in the morning, and dew still covered the perfectly manicured lawn at the entrance. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. She needed this job. The ad in the local paper had been clear. Experienced gardener wanted. Above average pay. Pierce residence. She had lied about her experience in the phone interview, but not about her desperation. 3 months of overdue bills and a 6-month-old baby to feed didn't leave much room for complete honesty. Maya adjusted the baby carrier that held Emma to her chest and walked along the stone path to the side entrance of the house. The mansion was imposing, with enormous windows and gardens that looked straight out of a magazine. Exactly the kind of place where people like her didn't belong, but she was here anyway. She knocked on the back door, where she had been instructed to report. No one answered. She knocked again, harder this time. Emma stirred, making a small sound against her chest. "Shh, sweetie," Maya whispered, rocking her gently. "Mommy just needs to get this job." The door swung open abruptly. Maya looked up to find a tall man standing in the doorway. His dark hair was messy as if he had just woken up, and his green eyes scanned her from head to toe with an expression she couldn't decipher. He wore jeans and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and he was holding a leather briefcase in one hand. He was young, younger than she had imagined when they spoke on the phone. "You must be Maya Brooks," he said, his voice deep and without a hint of friendliness. "Yes, Mr. Pierce, Landon," he cut her off, his gaze going straight to the baby strapped to her chest. His expression changed instantly. "What is this?" Maya felt her stomach drop. She had hoped to arrive earlier, before he woke up, to maybe get things set up. But there he was, seeing everything in the very first minute. This is my daughter, Emma. This is no place for a child," Landon said, his voice sharp. Emma chose that moment to wake up completely, opening her light blue eyes and looking directly at the man in front of her. She smiled, the way babies do when they see a new face. Landon blinked, clearly caught off guard by the child's reaction. "Mr. Pierce," Maya began quickly, taking advantage of his hesitation. "I know it's not ideal, but—" "Not ideal," he repeated, running a hand through his hair. "It's completely unacceptable. You didn't mention a child when we spoke, because I knew you wouldn't give me a chance." Emma babbled something, reaching a tiny hand out towards Landon. He took a step back as if the child were contagious. Maya felt tears burn her eyes, but forced herself to keep her voice steady. "I have no one to leave her with." The words came out louder than she intended. She took a deep breath and tried again. "Please, I know I can do a good job. I've studied plants, read everything I could find. I know I don't have formal experience, Beck, but I'm a hard worker, and—" "You lied about your experience too." Landon crossed his arms, the briefcase still in his hand. Maya lowered her head. There was no point in lying anymore. "Yes, so you want me to trust someone who lied to get the job and who plans to turn my property into a daycare? Don't fire me, please." Maya looked up, and this time she couldn't hold back the tears. "I need this job. Emma needs food, diapers, a place to stay. I promise she won't be a bother. I can set up a little corner for her to sleep while I work. And—" "Stop." Landon held up a hand, suddenly looking tired. He glanced at the watch on his wrist and sighed. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes. Maya held her breath. Landon was silent for a few seconds, his gaze shifting between her and Emma. The baby had fallen asleep again, her little blonde head resting on her mother's chest. "1 month," he said finally, his voice low but firm. "You have 1 month to prove to me that you can do this job without—" He gestured vaguely towards the baby. "This interfering." Maya felt her legs go weak with relief. "Thank you, Mr. Pierce. I promise that if I notice the child getting in the way of the work in any capacity, you're out. If the plants die because you're more worried about taking care of her than doing your job, you're out. If she cries too much and bothers the neighbors, you're out." Maya nodded quickly. "I understand." I doubt it, Landon muttered, more to himself than to her. He turned to go back inside, then stopped and looked over his shoulder. The equipment is in the shed behind the house. You start with the front flower beds, and keep that child away from the pool. Yes, sir. He had already disappeared inside the house when Maya was finally able to move. Her legs were shaking so much that she had to lean against the wall for a moment. She had done it. A month wasn't long, but it was something. 30 days to prove she could be the best gardener he had ever hired. 30 days to show that Emma wouldn't be a problem. 30 days to save both their lives. Maya walked around the house until she found the shed Landon had mentioned. The door was unlocked, and she found tools organized on hooks on the wall, bags of soil and fertilizer stacked in the corner, and a hose coiled with military precision. It was all very different from the small herb garden she had tried to keep in her previous apartment, but she was going to make it work. She had to. Maya secured Emma more safely to her chest, grabbed a watering can and a small trowel, and walked to the front flower beds. The plants needed water, and some weeds were growing among the flowers. She could do this. As she worked, she couldn't help but glance at the front windows of the house from time to time. In one of them, she saw a shadow move behind the curtain. Someone was watching. Landon Pierce was watching. Maya lowered her head and focused on her work. She had 1 month to impress him, and she wasn't going to waste a single day, even if she had no idea how to keep a 6-month-old quiet and content while learning to be a gardener. Even if the man who hired her was clearly expecting her to fail. Even if she herself wasn't sure she could do it, but she was going to try. For Emma, she would try. The third day began with the sun rising stronger than usual. Landon left for the office at 7 in the morning, as always, but he paused before getting into his car. Across the garden, Maya was already working. She was on her knees beside a flower bed, digging into the soil with a small trowel. Emma was asleep in the carrier on her back, her little head bobbing slightly as her mother moved. Maya had fashioned a small umbrella attached to the baby carrier to shield her from the sun. Smart. Landon frowned and got into his car. It was none of his business how she managed, as long as the work got done. But when he returned for lunch 3 hours later, she was still there. This time, she was replanting some flowers that had died near the entrance. The sun was stronger now, and he could see the sweat on her forehead, but she didn't even stop for a drink of water. Emma was awake, looking around curiously as her mother worked. Landon stood at the kitchen window for a few minutes, watching. Maya was talking quietly to her daughter as she worked, explaining what she was doing as if the child could understand. "Daisies like the sun, Emma, but not this much," he heard her say. "Let's put them in a better spot." She moved the flowers to an area with partial shade, testing the moisture of the soil with her fingers before planting them again. Her movements were careful, deliberate. This wasn't the work of someone just trying to pass the time. Landon grabbed his lunch and went back to his office, but he couldn't concentrate on his spreadsheets. The image of Maya working under the hot sun kept replaying in his mind. On the 4th day, he left later on purpose. Maya was watering the side flower beds when he passed by. Emma was crying, a low but persistent cry that was clearly bothering her mother. "I know, sweetie, I know," Maya whispered, trying to soothe her daughter while continuing to water the plants. "So just a little longer, and Mommy will stop." But Emma wouldn't stop crying. Landon saw Maya stop what she was doing and sit in the shade of a tree. She unfastened the carrier, held Emma in her arms, and began to rock her gently. The child quieted down almost immediately. Maya stayed there for 5 minutes, just holding her daughter, humming a soft tune that Landon didn't recognize. Emma relaxed completely, her little blue eyes fixed on her mother's face. Then Maya stood up, strapped Emma to her back again, and went back to work as if nothing had happened. There were no sighs of irritation, no rush to make up for lost time. She simply picked up where she had left off. She hadn't complained. She hadn't shown any frustration at having to stop her work. She just took care of her daughter and returned to what she was doing, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Landon drove to work thinking about that. On the 5th day, he came home early. He found Maya kneeling by the pool, cleaning the decorative stones around it. Emma was lying on an improvised blanket in the shade, playing with a homemade rattle made from a plastic bottle with pebbles inside. The sun was relentless. Maya had wet her own shirt to cool down, but continued to work methodically, stone by stone. Her hands already showed signs of the hard work, small cuts, broken nails, calluses forming. "Mama," Emma babbled, reaching her little arms out towards her. Maya stopped immediately, took off her dirty gloves, and went to her daughter. She picked her up with clean hands, kissing her forehead. "Thirsty, aren't you, my love?" She took a bottle from an improvised cooler bag and gave it to Emma to drink. The child drank it all quickly, clearly thirsty from the heat. Maya then wet a small cloth and wiped her daughter's face, cooling her down. She checked if her diaper was dry, if her clothes weren't too tight in the heat. Only then did she return to work. Landon realized that she always put Emma first, but never used it as an excuse not to work. She simply adapted, found a way to do both. On the 6th day, he watched from the second-floor window. Maya was trying to move a heavy planter full of soil from one side to the other. It was obviously too heavy for her, but she didn't give up. First, she tried to push it, then pull it. She tilted it to one side and then the other, trying to find an angle that would work. Sweat dripped down her face, but she kept trying. Emma was sitting on the grass near her, clapping and laughing every time her mother made a face of effort. The child seemed to find it all very amusing. "Almost there, Emma," Maya said between attempts. "Mommy's going to get it." Finally, after 15 minutes of trying, Maya managed to move the planter a few feet, using a combination of pushing and tilting. She threw herself onto the grass next to her daughter, breathless but smiling. "We did it, Emma," she said, and the child laughed as if she knew exactly what her mother was talking about. Landon realized she could have left the planter where it was. She could have asked for help. She could have given up. But she did none of those things. On the 7th day, it rained. Landon thought Maya might not show up, since there wasn't much to do in the garden in the rain. But when he looked out the window at 7 in the morning, she was there. She had found indoor work in the shed, organizing tools and preparing seedlings in small pots. The tools that had been tossed in boxes now had specific places. Broken pots were separated from the good ones. Seeds were organized by type. Emma was in an improvised high chair made of crates, protected from the rain but still close to her mother. Maya had hung some colorful objects from the ceiling to entertain her daughter while she worked. Maya didn't waste time. When she couldn't work outside, she worked inside. When Emma needed attention, she gave it. When the sun was too strong, she protected herself but didn't stop. Landon realized he was looking for excuses to walk by the garden. In the morning when he left for work, at lunchtime, in the afternoon when he came back, and he always saw the same thing, Maya working with quiet determination, adapting to any situation. On the 8th day, he saw her carrying bags of fertilizer from the shed to the back flower beds. The bags were heavy. Landon knew because he had carried some himself, and she was obviously struggling, but she kept making trip after trip, sweating under the sun. Her arms trembled with the weight, but she didn't stop. Emma was sleeping in the shade, and Maya checked on her with every trip. She would stop to take a look, adjust the blanket, check if the shade was still in the right place. On the 3rd trip, Landon saw Maya stop and lean against the shed wall, clearly exhausted. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing heavily, looking at the bag she still needed to carry. He almost went out to help. His hand was already on the doorknob. Then Maya straightened up, wiped the sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand, picked up the bag, and continued. Landon stayed where he was, but something stirred in his chest. A strange feeling of respect. That night, he stood at his office window longer than usual. Maya had finished her work and was sitting on the grass with Emma, sharing a simple sandwich. The child was trying to grab little pieces of her mother's food, and Maya laughed every time she succeeded. "Slow down, Emma," she said, helping her daughter hold a small piece. "Chew well." Emma babbled incomprehensible replies, but Maya responded as if it were a real conversation. "Is that so? How interesting," she said, when Emma made some sounds. Tell me more." They seemed happy, even tired, even sweaty, even eating a simple sandwich sitting on the grass after a full day of hard work. They seemed genuinely happy. When was the last time he had felt like that? On the 9th day, Landon made a decision. He left the house 5 minutes later than usual and walked past the garden where Maya was working. "How's the work going?" he asked, stopping beside her. Maya looked up, clearly surprised. It was the first time he had initiated a conversation since the first day. "It's going well, Mr. Pierce. The front flower beds are almost done." Landon looked around. Indeed, the gardens were visibly better. The dead plants had been replaced, the weeds removed. Everything was more organized and cared for. "Good work," he said simply, and headed for his car. But before getting into the vehicle, he looked back. Maya had returned to her work, but she was smiling. A small, almost shy but genuine smile. On the 10th day, Landon realized he was no longer watching Maya to find reasons to fire her. He was watching because he admired her determination, the way she faced every difficulty without complaining, how she cared for her daughter and worked at the same time, how she found solutions to problems he hadn't even thought of, and that bothered him more than he wanted to admit. Because it meant that maybe, for the first time in 3 years, someone had managed to impress him. The meeting had been cancelled. Landon was on his way to the office when he got the call. The client needed to reschedule for the afternoon, which meant he had the whole morning free. Normally, he would go back home, grab some reports, and work in his home office. But this time, something made him drive slower on the way back. It was only 6:30 in the morning when he parked in the garage. Maya probably hadn't even arrived yet. He could use the morning silence to review some contracts before leaving again. But when he opened the back door of the house, he heard it. A soft, melodious voice, singing quietly. Landon stopped on the threshold, frowning. It wasn't the radio, the voice was too close, and there was no background music. He followed the sound to the kitchen window and looked outside. Maya was kneeling in the side garden, transplanting some seedlings. Emma was lying on a blanket beside her, looking up at the still pink dawn sky, and Maya was singing. It wasn't a song he recognized. Maybe it was something she had made up, or a lullaby she had learned from her own mother. The words were simple, about flowers growing and birds flying, but the melody was sweet and calming. Emma was completely mesmerized, her little blue eyes fixed on her mother's face, a small smile on her lips. "And the sun rises just to see you smile," Maya sang, pausing for a moment to make a funny face at her daughter. Emma giggled, batting her little hands in the air. "Did you like that part?" Maya asked, laughing too. "Then I'll sing it again." She went back to planting but continued to sing the same verse, varying the melody to make Emma laugh. Each time the child reacted, Maya would stop what she was doing to interact with her, then return to work without losing her rhythm. Landon realized he was holding his breath. There was something about the scene that left him unsettled. Not in a bad way. It was as if something inside him had been nudged, woken up after a long time sleeping. Maya wasn't just singing to entertain her daughter, she was genuinely happy. Even waking up before 6 in the morning, even facing another day of hard work in the sun, even with all the worries a 25-year-old single mother certainly had, she was singing. When was the last time he had sung? When was the last time he had done anything just because it made him happy? Emma made a little noise, and Maya immediately dropped her trowel, wiped her hands on her pants, and picked her daughter up. "Hungry?" she asked, kissing the child's cheek. "Or just wanted a hug from Mommy?" She rocked Emma gently, humming softly against her ear. The child calmed down immediately, snuggling into her mother's neck. "Don't I like early morning hugs too?" Maya whispered. "Makes the day start better, right?" Landon felt a tightness in his chest. He couldn't remember the last time someone had hugged him in the early morning, or at any other time, for that matter. Maya put Emma back on the blanket and resumed her work, but now she was humming a different tune. Softer, more intimate, as if it were just for the two of them. Landon stood there for another 15 minutes, watching how Maya talked to Emma about every plant she touched, explaining that the roses needed special care and that the daisies were more resilient. watching how she stopped every few minutes to check if her daughter was okay, if the sun wasn't bothering her, if she needed anything. Watching how she worked with a care that went far beyond what was necessary. She wasn't just doing the job, she was doing it with love. When Emma started to get restless, Maya completely stopped what she was doing. She picked up her daughter, walked to the shade of a large tree and sat on the grass. She took a bottle from the cooler bag and offered it to Emma, who accepted it eagerly. "Slowly, my love," Maya said gently. "There's no rush." She stroked her daughter's blonde hair as she drank, humming the same soft melody as before. The sun was fully rising now, illuminating the two of them with a soft golden light. Landon realized there was something hypnotic about the scene. Maya's infinite patience, the way she treated every moment with Emma as if it were precious, as if there were nowhere else in the world she'd rather be. He had grown up with nannies. Efficient people who took care of him because it was their job, who followed strict schedules and rules set by his parents. He had never seen someone care for a child with such genuine joy. When Emma finished her bottle, Maya lifted her into the air, playing airplane and laughing when the child squealed with delight. Then she brought her back to her lap and just sat there, holding her, rocking gently from side to side. "What a beautiful day, Emma," she said, looking around the garden. "Look how pretty the flowers are today, and the sky is the color of your eyes." Emma babbled something in response, and Maya nodded seriously. "I completely agree," she replied. "Days like this really are special." Landon felt an involuntary smile appear on his lips. Maya was having a serious conversation with a 6-month-old baby about the color of the sky, and somehow it made perfect sense. When Maya finally got up and went back to work, Landon realized he had spent almost half an hour just watching. Half an hour he should have used to work, to be productive, to do something useful. But he couldn't bring himself to regret it. He stepped away from the window and went to his office, but the image of Maya singing to Emma wouldn't leave his mind. The melody she had invented echoed in his head, and he caught himself humming parts of it while reviewing contracts. When he finally left for his afternoon meeting, he deliberately walked through the garden. Maya was working in the back flower beds now, and Emma was asleep in the shade. She looked up as he passed and gave a small wave. "Good afternoon, Mr. Pierce." "Good afternoon," he replied, pausing for a moment. "How's the work going?" "Good, I'm finishing the side area today. I'll start on the back tomorrow." Landon nodded and continued to his car, but her words echoed in his head for the rest of the day. It wasn't what she had said, but how she had said it. With pride. With genuine satisfaction for the progress she was making. When was the last time he had felt proud of his own work? He did his job well, he always had, but it was mechanical. Efficient. There was no passion there, no real satisfaction. The next morning, Landon woke up earlier. Not intentionally, he just woke up and couldn't go back to sleep. It was 5:30 in the morning, too early to go to work, but he got up anyway. He made coffee and got ready to leave, but as he was grabbing his keys, he heard it again. Maya's voice, singing. This time he didn't hesitate. He went straight to the kitchen window and looked out. Maya was watering the front flower beds, with Emma strapped to her back. But she wasn't just watering, she was dancing. Small, subtle movements, swaying her hips to the rhythm of the song she was singing. Emma was loving it. She giggled every time Maya twirled or made a more elaborate move, patting her little hands on her mother's back. "Dance with me, Emma," Maya said between verses. "Let's cheer up these plants." She stopped in front of a rose bush and made an exaggerated bow. "Good morning, beauties," she said to the flowers. "I brought you some fresh water." Emma babbled something and Maya nodded seriously. "Emma says you all look very pretty today," she translated for the roses. "And I agree." Landon found himself smiling again. There was something contagious about Maya's joy, the way she turned simple tasks into moments of fun. When she finished watering, Maya sat on the grass and unstrapped Emma from her back. The child was clearly full of energy, crawling around the blanket Maya had spread out and exploring every texture she could find. "Watch out for the ant," Maya said, as Emma got close to a small insect. "She's working." "Just like Mommy." Emma tried to grab the ant one, but Maya gently guided her hand away. She has a family to take care of, just like us, Maya explained. Let's leave her be. It was a simple moment, but Landon was impressed by Maya's patience, by the way she used every situation as an opportunity to teach Emma something, even knowing the child was too young to fully understand. In the following days, Landon found himself waking up earlier, finding excuses to stay home in the morning, passing through the garden more frequently. He told himself he was just checking to make sure the work was being done properly, that it was his responsibility as an employer to supervise his staff. But the truth was, he was fascinated by the way Maya held Emma, always carefully, but never with fear, as if the child was precious but not fragile. Fascinated by the way she talked to the plants, explaining to Emma what each one needed, as if sharing important secrets. Fascinated by the way she maintained focus on her work, even when Emma was being difficult, always finding a way to resolve the situation without frustration or irritation. One morning, he saw her trying to plant some seedlings while Emma cried inconsolably. Maya tried everything: food, a diaper change, toys, songs. Nothing worked. Landon expected to see her get irritated, maybe give up on work for the day. Instead, Maya simply picked Emma up and continued working with one hand. It was harder, more time-consuming, but she didn't stop. "You need more attention today, don't you, sweetie?" she said to Emma, kissing her forehead. "It's okay, Mommy understands." And she continued planting, holding Emma against her chest, humming softly to calm her down. Landon watched for a full hour. Not once did Maya show any frustration or impatience. She simply adapted, found a new way to make things work. When he finally got in his car to go to work that morning, Landon realized he had spent more time watching Maya than working in the last few days. And for the first time in 3 years, it didn't bother him. In fact, he was looking forward to coming home and seeing what would happen the next day. The image of Maya singing to Emma, dancing in the garden, working with love and care, had permanently settled in his mind, and he no longer knew how to get it out, nor if he even wanted to. The following Monday, Maya arrived at work and found something different. 2 men were assembling a metal structure over the side flower beds. She stopped at the entrance, holding Emma to her chest, unsure whether to interrupt or wait. "Excuse me," she finally said, addressing the taller man. "Are you from some maintenance company?" "Awnings and shades, ma'am," the man replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "The boss sent us to install sun protection over the flower beds where you work." Maya blinked, confused. "Mr. Pierce had this installed." "That's right. Said it was urgent, that you were spending too much time in the sun." She looked around, still processing the information. Shade over the flower beds meant she and Emma would be protected during the hottest hours of the day. It meant she wouldn't have to improvise with the small umbrella anymore, or worry so much about Emma getting too much sun. "How long will it take?" she asked. "About 2 hours, max. Could you work in the back in the meantime?" Maya nodded and headed towards the back of the house, still bewildered. Landon hadn't mentioned anything about installing shade. In fact, he barely spoke to her beyond basic greetings. Why would he do that? She spent the morning trying not to think too much about it, but it was difficult. Every time she glanced towards the men working, a strange feeling settled in her chest. When the men finished and left, Maya walked to the side flower beds to see the result. They had installed discreet but effective awnings that covered exactly the areas where she spent the most time working. It was perfect. Maya touched one of the metal structures, still trying to understand. Landon had observed where she worked, had noticed she spent a lot of time in the sun and had done something about it, without even telling her. On Wednesday, when Maya arrived for work, she found a small plastic table strategically placed in the shade of a tree. On top of the table was a large dispenser of fresh water and some disposable cups. This time she didn't have to ask who had put it there. Emma was thirsty earlier than usual that day, and Maya was able to give her fresh water immediately, without having to wait until she went home for lunch. She herself drank several cups throughout the morning, only then realizing how dehydrated she always was after hours of working in the heat. On Friday, Maya arrived to find a small beach umbrella stuck in the ground in the area where she usually spread Emma's blanket. The umbrella was light blue, simple, but it created the perfect shade for the child to play in. Maya stood there for a few minutes, just looking at the umbrella. Emma babbled something in her arms and she automatically replied, "Yeah, sweetie. Someone is looking out for us." But who was this someone? The Landon she knew was polite but distant, professional but cold. He had made it clear on the first day that he didn't want a child around, that she was there on a trial basis. Why would he be making things easier for her? The following Monday, Maya followed her normal routine. She spread Emma's blanket under the umbrella, arranged her daughter's improvised toys, and started working on the nearby flower beds. When she went to check on Emma an hour later, she found something that made her stop in her tracks. Next to the blanket was a new toy, a small, soft, light blue teddy bear. It was positioned so that Emma could see it easily, but far enough away that she couldn't swallow any parts. Maya looked around, but saw no one. She checked if there was a card or note with the bear. Nothing. Emma had noticed the toy and was trying to reach it, making excited little noises. Maya picked up the bear and examined it. It was new, still with the store tag on. Soft, safe for babies, clearly chosen with care. "Where did you come from?" she whispered to the bear, as if it would answer. Emma stretched out her little arms, wanting the toy. Maya handed it to her, and she immediately hugged it to her chest, smiling. For the rest of the morning, Maya worked while trying to process what had happened. Someone had bought a toy for Emma. Someone had cared enough to choose something appropriate for her age, something safe and cute. And the only person who made sense was Landon. But why? On Wednesday, Maya arrived earlier than usual. She wanted to finish the front flower beds before the sun got too strong, even with the protection of the awnings. She was kneeling, planting some flowers, when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and saw Landon standing a few feet away, already dressed for work, but clearly in no rush to leave. "Good morning, Mr. Pierce," she said, wiping her hands on her pants. "Good morning," he replied, his eyes automatically going to Emma, who was sitting on the blanket playing with the blue teddy bear. Maya saw something change in his expression as he looked at her daughter. His face softened, almost imperceptibly, but she noticed. Emma saw him too. The child stopped playing and stared at Landon with curiosity. Then, to Maya's surprise, Emma smiled, a big, happy smile as if she were seeing an old friend. Landon was clearly surprised. He blinked a few times, looking at Emma as if he wasn't sure how to react. Emma babbled something in his direction, holding out the teddy bear as if offering it for him to see. And then it happened. Landon smiled back. It was quick, almost involuntary, but Maya saw it. A genuine, spontaneous smile that completely transformed his face. For a moment, he didn't look like the serious, distant businessman. He just looked like a man surprised and touched by the simple joy of a child. "She liked he started to say, then stopped abruptly, as if realizing he had almost given himself away. "The teddy bear." Maya finished the sentence and watching his reaction. "Yes, she loves it. She won't let it go." Landon looked away, clearly uncomfortable. "I need to get to work," he said, already turning to leave. "Mr. Pierce," Maya called out, and he stopped. "Thank you. For the shade, for the water, for everything." He stood with his back to her for a moment, without turning around. "Just keep up the good work," he said finally, and headed for his car. But Maya saw his shoulders relax when she thanked him, saw the way he slowed his pace, as if he didn't really want to leave. In the following days, Maya started to notice more things. Every time Landon passed through the garden, Emma would look for him with her eyes. And every time she smiled at him, he would smile back, even while trying to hide it. One morning, Maya pretended to be focused on her work, but watched out of the corner of her eye as Landon stopped near Emma's blanket. The child was lying on her stomach, trying to reach the bear that had rolled away. Landon looked around, checking to see if Maya was watching, then quickly bent down and pushed the bear back closer to Emma. Emma giggled and clapped her hands, as if he had performed the best trick in the world. Landon stood there for a few more seconds, watching Emma play before realizing what he was doing and quickly walking away. But Maya had seen everything. And for the first time since she had started working there, she allowed herself to think that maybe Landon Pierce wasn't as cold as he seemed. Maybe, underneath that professional facade, there was someone who cared more than he wanted to admit. Someone who bought teddy bears for babies and installed shade in the gardens, but pretended he had done nothing. Someone who smiled when he thought no one was looking. Maya went back to work with a strange feeling in her chest. Hope, perhaps. Or just gratitude for working for someone who, apparently, cared about her and her daughter's well-being. Whatever the reason behind Landon's gestures, one thing was certain. Emma had won a special place in his heart, and Maya was beginning to suspect that she had too. The sky had been threatening all morning, but Maya decided to keep working. She needed to finish planting the seedlings that had arrived the day before, and she couldn't afford to lose a whole day because of some clouds. Emma was sitting on her blanket under the umbrella, playing happily with the blue teddy bear, while Maya worked in the nearby flower beds. The air was heavy, charged with the electricity that precedes a storm, but there was still no sign of rain, until the first drops began to fall. Maya looked up at the sky and sighed. A few drops she could ignore, but when she heard the first clap of thunder in the distance, she knew she needed to seek shelter. "Come here, sweetie," she said, picking Emma up and starting to gather the toys scattered on the blanket. That's when the rain poured down. In seconds, the sparse drops turned into a curtain of water. Maya shielded Emma as best she could and ran towards the shed, but it was too far. She was soaked within a few feet. "Maya!" She heard Landon's voice coming from the direction of the house. He was standing at the back door, waving for her to come over. "Over here! Come inside!" Maya didn't hesitate. She ran towards the house, protecting Emma from the rain as best she could. Landon held the door open for her, and by the time Maya got inside, they were both out of breath. "Oh my goodness," Maya said, trying to catch her breath. That rain came out of nowhere. She looked down and realized she was dripping all over the clean kitchen floor. Her clothes were completely soaked, and she could feel water running down her hair. "I'm sorry, I'm getting everything dirty," she said, trying to move away from the door. "Don't worry about it," Landon replied, already grabbing some towels from a nearby closet. "Are you two okay?" Maya checked on Emma, who seemed more surprised than scared by the sudden downpour. The child was relatively dry, protected by her mother's body during the run. "She's fine," Maya said, accepting one of the towels Landon offered. "So, thank you." Landon nodded and stepped away, clearly uncomfortable with the forced proximity. He was dressed for work, a dark suit, a crisp white shirt, but had taken off his jacket because of the morning heat. Maya began to dry herself, but she realized she was trembling. Not from the cold exactly, but from nervousness. It was the first time she had been inside Landon's house, the first time they had been in an enclosed space together. "The forecast didn't say anything about rain," Landon commented, looking out the kitchen window. Outside, water was falling in torrents, turning the well-kept garden into a temporary lake. "At least the plants will be happy," Maya said, trying to break the ice. Emma babbled something and reached her little arms towards Landon. He looked at the child, and Maya saw that same involuntary smile appear on his face. "Is she always this cheerful?" he asked. "Almost always," Maya replied, feeling a little more relaxed. She's all I have." The words slipped out before she could stop them. There was something about the atmosphere of the moment, the rain outside, the enclosed space, the vulnerability of being wet and dependent on his kindness, that made her let her guard down. Landon looked at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. "It must be hard," he said simply. Maya nodded, adjusting Emma in her lap. "It is. Sometimes it's very hard." A louder clap of thunder echoed outside, and she instinctively hugged Emma tighter. The child didn't seem bothered, but Maya felt a wave of motherly protection. "Her father," Landon began, then paused, as if unsure whether he should ask. "He's not part of our lives," Maya answered quickly. Then, perhaps because the rain and the intimate moment made her feel she could be honest, she continued, "He left me when he found out I was pregnant." Landon remained silent. He said he wasn't ready to be a father, that he was too young, that he had plans for his life that didn't include a family. Maya continued, the words flowing in a stream she couldn't control. He left the house one day and never came back. Not even when Emma was born. She stopped talking abruptly, realizing she was sharing very personal things with her boss. But there was something in the way Landon listened, without judgment, without rushing to change the subject, that made her feel she could continue. "I'm sorry," she said, running a hand through her wet hair. "You don't need to hear this. You don't need to apologize," Landon said quietly. Maya looked at him and saw something different in his expression, an understanding that went beyond simple politeness. "When Emma was born, I was alone in the hospital," she went on, not knowing why she was still talking. "I had no one to call, no one to share that moment with. It was scary and wonderful at the same time. Emma chose that moment to make a happy little noise, and Maya smiled despite the tears that threatened to appear. But just look at how perfect she is," Maya said, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Every time I look at her, I know it was worth it. Every difficult moment, every sleepless night, every time I thought I couldn't make it, it was worth it." Landon was looking at Emma with an intense expression. When he looked up at Maya, she saw something that surprised her. Pain. Deep, old pain, as if her words had touched on something he kept well guarded. "He doesn't know what he's missing," Landon said finally, his voice lower than usual. "Sometimes I wonder if he regrets it," Maya admitted. "If he thinks about us, if he wonders how Emma is growing up. But then, I think maybe it's better this way. A child deserves someone who wants to be present, not someone who stays out of obligation." Landon nodded slowly, as if he understood exactly what she meant. The rain continued to fall outside, but with less intensity now. The constant sound of the drops created a strange intimacy in the kitchen, as if the outside world had temporarily disappeared. "Have you ever been married?" Maya asked, surprising herself with the direct question. Landon tensed up immediately. Maya saw his shoulders stiffen, saw the wall he had lowered go back up again. "Once," he replied after a long silence. "Almost." He didn't elaborate, but Maya knew there was a story there, a story that probably hurt just as much as hers. "I'm sorry," she said. "That was none of my business." "No, it's fine," Landon replied, but his voice was different now, more distant. It was a long time ago. They were silent for a few minutes, listening to the rain gradually subside. Emma had fallen asleep in Maya's lap, lulled by the sound of the water and the warmth of the room. Landon was looking out the window, but Maya could tell he wasn't really seeing the garden outside. He was lost in thought, in memories that clearly still bothered him. She wanted to ask more, wanted to understand what had happened to make a man in his 30s choose to live alone in a mansion that was too big for him. But she realized she had already shared too much, had already invaded his personal space more than she should have. "I think the rain is stopping," she said finally. Landon turned and looked at her, as if returning from a very distant place. "Yes," he agreed, "it's stopping." But neither of them moved to leave. There was something in the air, a mutual understanding that neither was ready to name. Two people who had been hurt, who had chosen different paths to deal with the pain, but who recognized in each other the mark that abandonment leaves. "Maya," Landon said, and there was something different in the way he pronounced her name. Softer, more personal. "Shoessa." He opened his mouth as if he were about to say something important, then changed his mind. "The work you're doing in the garden, it's very good. Better than I expected." Maya smiled, realizing that wasn't what he had originally intended to say, but it was good enough. It was a start. "Thank you," she replied. The rain had stopped completely now. The sun was beginning to appear between the clouds, creating little rainbows in the drops that still dripped from the trees. "I think I can get back to work now," Maya said, standing up carefully so as not to wake Emma. Landon nodded, but didn't move to open the door for her. "Maya," he said again, if you need anything, for Emma or for yourself, you can come to me." It was a simple offer, but Maya understood the weight behind the words, coming from a man who clearly valued his privacy, who kept his distance from everyone around him. It was almost a declaration. "Thank you, Landon," she said, using his first name for the first time. He seemed surprised to hear her say his name but didn't correct her. As Maya left the house and returned to the sun-drenched garden, she carried more than just her sleeping daughter. She carried the feeling that something had changed between her and Landon in those few minutes. They had both shown their scars, and maybe, just maybe, it was the first step toward starting to heal them. After the rain, something changed. Maya noticed it the next morning when she arrived for work and found Landon in the kitchen having coffee. He didn't rush off when he saw her, didn't pretend to be busy. Instead, he waved through the window and continued to drink his coffee, watching her get set up in the garden. Emma was particularly fussy that morning, wanting constant attention and refusing to stay quiet on her blanket. Maya tried everything, toys, songs, even a walk around the garden, but nothing worked. She was on her knees trying to plant some seedlings when Emma started to cry louder. Maya sighed, dropped her trowel and was about to pick her daughter up when she heard footsteps behind her. "Can I try?" Landon asked. Maya turned, surprised. He was standing a few feet away, already dressed for work, but in no apparent hurry. "You want to hold her? If you don't mind." Maya hesitated for a second, not because she didn't trust him, but because it was strange. In all these months of taking care of Emma alone, very few people had offered to help. "Of course," she finally said, wiping her hands on her pants before picking Emma up. "She's being a little difficult today." Landon held out his arms, and Maya carefully passed Emma to him. The child stopped crying immediately, more out of curiosity than anything else. She looked at Landon's face intently, as if studying every detail. "Hi, Emma," Landon said softly, and his voice had a gentleness Maya had never heard before. Emma smiled the way she did when she saw something that interested her. Then she reached out a little hand and touched Landon's face, exploring. "She likes you," Maya observed. "And I like her," Landon replied, seeming surprised by his own admission. He rocked Emma gently, and she giggled, clearly loving the attention. Maya watched for a few moments, impressed by how natural Landon was. He didn't seem uncomfortable or nervous, as most people did when holding a baby for the first time. "You can keep working," Landon said, noticing she was just standing there. "I'll watch her." "You don't have to... don't you have to go to work?" "I have a meeting at 10, plenty of time." Maya returned to her seedlings, but it was hard to concentrate completely. Every now and then, she would look back and see Landon walking around the garden with Emma, showing her the flowers, talking softly about the plants. "See these roses, Emma," she heard him say. "Your mum took great care of them. They're much prettier now." Emma babbled replies, and Landon responded as if they were having a real conversation. "Is that so? How interesting." When Maya finished planting, Landon was still entertaining Emma. The child was completely relaxed in his arms, playing with the button on his shirt. "Thank you," Maya said, as he handed Emma back to her. "I got finished so much faster." "You're welcome. She's great company." The next morning, Landon appeared again. This time he brought a second cup of coffee. "I thought you might want some," he said, offering the cup to Maya. "Thank you," she said, genuinely surprised. "You didn't have to." It was no trouble. They drank their coffee in silence for a few minutes, watching Emma play on the blanket. It was a comfortable silence without the tension of the first few days. "What are you planting today?" Landon asked. "Some herbs in the back beds, thyme, rosemary, basil." "You know a lot about plants." Maya blushed slightly. "I learned by reading and by trying. I still make a lot of mistakes." "It doesn't seem like it. Everything you've planted so far is growing well." The compliment made her feel more embarrassed, but in a good way. It was comforting to know her effort was being noticed. "If you want, I can show you where I keep the herb seeds," Landon offered. "There are some varieties you might not know." "I'd love that." They walked to the shed together, Emma in Maya's arms. Landon opened an organized drawer full of small seed envelopes. "My mother used to plant herbs," he explained, handling a few packets. "She used to say a garden without a scent wasn't a real garden." It was the first time he had mentioned his family, and Maya didn't want to ask too many questions, but she stored the information, happy that he had shared something personal. She was right, Maya agreed. Bet I love how the garden smells in the early morning. You get here very early. I always see you here when I'm having coffee. Emma wakes up early, and I like this time of day. It's cooler, quieter. And you sing, Landon said, then seemed to realize he had just admitted to watching her. I'm sorry if it bothers you, Maya said quickly. I can stop. It doesn't bother me. Emma likes it, and I like it too. In the following days, Landon's presence became a constant. He would show up in the morning, always with a practical excuse. He wanted to check on something, or he had some seeds to give her, or he thought of a change for a flower bed. But Maya noticed that he always stayed longer than necessary. Those bags are too heavy for you, he said one morning, seeing her carrying fertilizer. I can manage, Maya protested, but he had already picked up 2 bags. Where do you want me to put them? Over there by the back, please. He carried all the bags without complaining, while Maya followed behind with Emma. When they finished, he was sweaty but didn't seem bothered. Thank you, Maya said. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. You're taking care of my garden. It's the least I can do. But Maya realized it wasn't just about the garden. Landon seemed genuinely concerned about her well-being. He brought a small stool so she wouldn't always have to kneel. He suggested better times to work with certain plants. He even commented that she looked tired one day and should get more rest. How did you learn so much about plants? Maya asked one morning as he helped her rearrange a flower bed. My mother taught me when I was a child. After she passed away, I kept tending to her garden. It was a way to feel close to her. Maya stopped working and looked at him. There was sadness in his voice, but also affection. She would be proud to see how beautiful it is now. It's beautiful because of you. I just kept it alive. You brought life back to it. It was a simple compliment, but it meant a lot coming from him. Emma chose that moment to make a noise, calling for attention. Landon automatically turned to her, smiling. What is it, little one? Are you jealous because we're not paying attention to you? Emma giggled and held her arms out to him. Without hesitation, Landon picked her up. You're going to spoil her, Maya teased. She deserves to be spoiled, Landon replied, making a funny face that made Emma burst out laughing. Watching the two of them together, Maya felt something stir in her chest. It wasn't just gratitude for the help or relief to have someone who cared about Emma. It was something more dangerous. It was the feeling that maybe, for the first time since Emma was born, they weren't completely alone in the world. And that was both wonderful and terrifying. The afternoon was hotter than usual when Maya realized something was wrong. Emma had been restless all morning, but Maya attributed it to the heat. The child was on the blanket under the umbrella, playing with her teddy bear, but without her usual enthusiasm. She was quieter, less interested in her toys. Are you okay, sweetie? Maya asked, dropping her trowel and approaching her daughter. When she touched Emma's forehead, her heart raced. The child was warm, very warm. Maya picked her up immediately, feeling the heat through her clothes. Emma nestled against her in a different way, more needy, as if seeking comfort. It's okay, my love, Maya whispered, but her own voice was trembling. Mommy's here. Emma started to cry, a low, tired cry that was nothing like her usual whimpers. Maya walked into the shade, rocking her gently, trying to calm her. Then Emma coughed. It was a dry, harsh cough that made her small body contract. Maya felt panic rising in her throat. Emma had never been sick before, not even a simple cold. Shh, sweetie, it's okay, Maya said, more to calm herself than to calm Emma, but it wasn't okay. The fever was getting worse. She could feel it, and the cough was becoming more frequent. Maya looked around desperate. She was miles from the city center, without a car, with a clearly sick baby. The nearest hospital was at least a 40-minute bus ride away, and she didn't even really know where it was. Emma coughed again, harder this time, and began to cry more intensely. What do I do? Maya whispered to herself, feeling hot tears in her eyes. What do I do? She walked back toward the house, Emma still crying in her arms. Maybe she could call a taxi, or for an ambulance, or Maya? She turned and saw Landon coming out of the house. He had come home from work early, something that was happening more frequently lately. "What happened?" he asked, immediately noticing the desperation on her face. "Emma has a fever," Maya said, her voice breaking, "and a cough. She's never been sick before, and I don't know. I don't have a car, and the hospital is far, and—" Landon approached quickly, reaching out to touch Emma's forehead. The child looked at him through her tears, still coughing. "She's really warm," he said, the concern clear in his voice. "How long has it been?" "It started an hour ago, maybe 2. But it's getting worse quickly." Emma coughed again, a sound that made Maya hold her tighter. "We're taking her to the doctor," Landon said without hesitation. "Now." "But I can't afford a taxi to—" "I'm taking you," Landon cut her off. "Get Emma's things, anything you think you might need." Maya looked at him, surprised. He was talking as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if there wasn't a moment of hesitation. "You would do that?" "Maya," Landon said, and there was an urgency in his voice she had never heard before. "Let's not waste time arguing. Emma needs to see a doctor." Maya nodded quickly and ran to get Emma's bag. Her hands trembled as she put diapers, bottles, and toys into the bag. Emma kept coughing, and each sound made Maya's panic grow. When she came out of the house, Landon already had the car running, the passenger door open. "Get in," he said, and she obeyed immediately. Landon drove quickly but carefully. Maya sat in the back seat with Emma, trying to keep her calm, but the child was clearly feeling worse by the minute. "Where are we going?" Maya asked. "I know a private pediatrician. He takes emergencies. I already called. He's waiting for us at his office." Maya looked at him in the rearview mirror, surprised again. He had thought of everything while she was just trying not to panic. "Thank you," she whispered. "No need to thank me." Emma coughed harder, and Maya felt tears stream down her face. She felt so useless, so unprepared. How had she not noticed Emma was getting sick? How had she missed the signs earlier? "She's going to be okay," Landon said, as if reading her thoughts. "Our kids get sick. It's part of growing up. But she's always been so healthy. And she will be again. We'll find out what it is and treat it." The confidence in his voice was comforting. Maya focused on breathing, on keeping Emma calm, on not letting the panic take over completely. Dr. Peterson's office was in the city center, in an elegant building Maya could never afford. Landon parked in front and quickly got out to open the door for her. "Dr. Peterson is an old family friend," he explained as they walked. "He's excellent." The doctor was waiting for them at the reception, an older man with grey hair and a kind expression. He looked at Emma and immediately gestured for them to follow him into the examination room. "Let's see what we have here," he said gently, preparing his stethoscope. Maya held Emma while the doctor examined her. Landon stood beside them, a silent but comforting presence. "High fever," Dr. Peterson murmured, checking her temperature. "And this cough? Let's take a look at your throat, little one." Emma cried during the exam but calmed down when Maya hummed softly to her. The doctor worked efficiently, checking her ears, throat, and lungs. "It's just a virus," he said finally, and Maya felt relief flood her body. "Very common in babies this age. The cough and fever should get better in a few days with the right treatment." "Are you sure?" Maya asked, still anxious. "Absolutely. I'll prescribe a fever reducer, appropriate for her age, and some cough syrup. Keep her hydrated and resting. If the fever doesn't come down in 48 hours, give me a call." Maya nodded, feeling her legs weak with relief. On the way back home, Emma was already calmer. The fever reducer had started to work and she slept for most of the ride. "Thank you," Maya said when Landon parked in front of the house. "I don't know what I would have done without you." "I did what anyone would do," Landon replied, but his eyes were fixed on Emma, still sleeping in Maya's arms. "No," Maya shook her head. "Most people wouldn't. Most people wouldn't drop everything to take someone else's child to the doctor." Landon was silent for a moment. "She's not just someone else's child," he said softly. "Not to me." Maya looked at him, surprised by the honesty in his voice. "Landon, are you going home now?" he asked, changing the subject. Maya nodded, then paused. Actually, I live in a small apartment on the other side of town, no air conditioning, not much space for Emma to recover comfortably. She wasn't asking for anything, just explaining. But Landon frowned. That doesn't sound ideal for a sick child. We'll manage, Maya said quickly. So we always manage. Landon was silent for a long moment, looking at Emma sleeping peacefully in Maya's arms. I have a proposal, he said finally. What kind of proposal? The mansion has 4 bedrooms, 3 are empty. One of them has its own bathroom, a view of the garden, plenty of space. Maya looked at him, not understanding where he was going with this. You could move in here, Landon continued. Temporarily while Emma recovers, or permanently if you want. Maya felt the world stop for a moment. You're offering for us to live here? I am. The garden needs constant care anyway. It would be more practical to have the gardener living on the property. And Emma seems happy here. Maya could see he was trying to make the proposal sound professional, but there was something in his eyes that said it wasn't just about practicality. Landon, I can't accept this. It's too much. Why can't you? Because I barely know you. Because you're my boss. Because it would be weird. Would it? Landon asked. Just would it be so natural? Maya looked at him, then at Emma sleeping in her arms, then at the large, beautiful mansion in front of her. What if it doesn't work out? What if you get tired of having us around? I won't get tired of it, Landon said with a certainty that surprised her. Maya was silent, considering living here would mean Emma would have space to play, clean air, a safe garden to explore. It would mean she herself would no longer have to wake up at 5 in the morning to catch 2 buses to work. But it would also mean living in the same house as Landon, seeing him every day, not just as a boss, but as, a friend, something more. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. But for now, why don't you spend the night here? Emma needs rest, and so do you. You look like you haven't slept properly in weeks. Maya looked at Emma, still feverish but sleeping peacefully, then at Landon, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. Just for tonight, she said finally. Just for tonight, Landon agreed, but they both knew it wouldn't be just one night. As Landon helped her bring her things inside, Maya realized that something fundamental had changed between them that day. He hadn't just taken Emma to the doctor. He had genuinely cared, had been worried, had made decisions as if Emma were his responsibility too. And for the first time since Emma was born, Maya allowed herself to imagine what it would be like not to face everything alone, what it would be like to have someone by her side, someone who cared about Emma's well-being as much as she did, what it would be like to have a real family. Even if she didn't know yet if that was what Landon was offering, the possibility was both thrilling and terrifying, because it meant that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to trust someone again. And maybe Landon was ready to let someone into his life too. Maya woke up to the smell of coffee. She opened her eyes slowly, for a moment confused about where she was. The room was large, airy, with windows overlooking the garden. Then she remembered. She was in Landon's mansion. It had been a week already. Emma was still sleeping in the makeshift crib next to the bed, breathing peacefully. The fever had completely gone after 3 days, but when Landon suggested they stay a few more days, just to be sure, Maya didn't have the strength to refuse. And now, a week later, it felt natural to wake up here. Maya got dressed quickly and went down to the kitchen, following the scent of coffee. She found Landon already dressed for work, but in no hurry, stirring something on the stove. Good morning, he said without turning around. I hope you don't mind. I made scrambled eggs for all of us. All of us? Maya asked, still half asleep. You, me, and Emma, though she's still only on milk, right? Maya smiled. It was strange how quickly he had gotten used to including Emma in everything. You don't have to cook for me, she said, grabbing a cup of coffee. I know, but I like to cook, and it's more fun when there's company. Emma chose that moment to start crying upstairs. Maya immediately turned to go get her, but Landon stopped her. I'll go, he said, already taking off his apron. You finish waking up. Before Maya could protest, he was already heading up the stairs. She heard him talking to Emma, his voice soft and patient. "Good morning, princess. Did you sleep well? Mommy's downstairs. Shall we go find her?" When they came down, Emma was beaming in Landon's arms, babbling happily. She had gotten used to him far too quickly, reaching her little arms out whenever she saw him, smiling when she heard his voice. "She adores you," Maya observed, preparing Emma's bottle. "And I adore her," Landon replied, making a funny face that made Emma laugh. "Isn't that right, Emma? We're great friends." They had breakfast together, a domestic scene Maya had never imagined. Landon held Emma while Maya ate. Then they switched places. It was natural, spontaneous, as if they had always done this. "Aren't you going to be late for work?" Maya asked, noticing he wasn't in a rush. "I rescheduled my first meeting. I wanted to make sure you two were settled in okay." He had been doing that, rearranging his schedule to spend more time at home. Maya didn't comment, but she noticed. "Today I'm going to plant the rose bushes that arrived yesterday," she said. "Emma can stay in the new stroller you bought." Landon had shown up with a stroller 2 days ago, saying it would be more practical for the garden. It was an expensive model, with sun protection and wheels suitable for uneven terrain. "Can I help before I leave?" he offered. "The seedlings are heavy. You've already done too much, Landon." "I haven't done anything too much. I'm just enjoying having you here." There was something in the way he said it, a vulnerability that Maya was learning to recognize, as if he still couldn't quite believe that they wanted to be there too. After breakfast, they went to the garden together. Landon carried the rose bushes while Maya pushed Emma in the new stroller. The morning was perfect, with a gentle breeze and sun filtered through the trees. "Is this a good spot?" Landon asked, positioning the seedlings near the back fence. "Perfect. They'll get morning sun and afternoon shade." They worked side by side, Landon digging the holes while Maya prepared the seedlings. Emma watched everything from the stroller, clapping whenever the two of them did something she found interesting. "You're a fast learner," Maya commented, watching Landon plant with perfected technique. "I had a good teacher. Your mother, my mother, and now you." Maya blushed at the compliment. In recent days, Landon had made many comments like that, acknowledging her knowledge, valuing her work. It was different from having a boss. It was more like having a partner. "Done," Landon said, clapping his hands to get the dirt off. "Anything else?" "I think that's good for today. You should go to work." But Landon didn't move. Instead, he approached Emma and made a face that made her giggle. "Are you going to take care of Mommy today, Emma? Don't let her work too hard in the sun." Emma babbled something that sounded like approval, reaching her little arms out to him. "I think that's a yes," Maya laughed. Landon picked Emma up, lifting her into the air. The child squealed with joy, laughing so hard that Maya's heart warmed. "Careful, she just had her milk," Maya warned. "She's fine," Landon said, lowering Emma but continuing to rock her gently. "Aren't you, princess? You're a brave girl." Emma placed her little hands on Landon's face, exploring as she always did. He stood perfectly still, letting her touch his nose, his mouth, his eyes. "She does that with me too," Maya said. "I think it's how she gets to know people." "Smart," Landon murmured, kissing Emma's forehead. "Very smart." When he finally handed Emma back to Maya, he seemed reluctant to leave. "I'll be back for lunch," he said. "You don't have to." "I want to." In the afternoon, when Landon arrived, he found Maya organizing tools in the shed while Emma slept in the stroller. He approached silently, watching Maya work. "How was your morning?" he asked. "Quiet." "Emma slept a lot. I think she's still recovering." "And you? How do you feel living here?" Maya stopped what she was doing and looked at him. It was a simple question, but she knew the answer was important to him. "Good," she said honestly. "Very good. Emma seems happy, and I feel safe here." "Safe?" "Safe in knowing that if something happens, I won't be alone. Safe in knowing Emma has room to grow. Safe in knowing that we're welcome." Landon nodded, clearly relieved by her answer. "You are more than welcome. You make this house a home." That afternoon, After Maya finished her work, the three of them sat on the porch. Emma was on Landon's lap, playing with the buttons on his shirt, while Maya prepared a snack for her. "She'll start crawling soon," Maya observed. "I hope you're prepared to have the house turned upside down." "I can't wait," Landon said, and Maya could see he was serious. "You might change your mind when she starts getting into everything." "I won't change my mind." Emma chose that moment to grab Landon's tie and try to put it in her mouth. He laughed, gently uncurling her little fingers. "All right, you can play with the tie," he said, taking it off and handing it to Emma, who immediately started waving it in the air. "Your expensive tie," Maya protested. "It's just a tie." "Emma is more important." They sat there until the sun set, talking about simple things, the garden, plans for the next day, the little discoveries Emma was making. It was comforting, domestic, natural. At night, after Maya put Emma to bed, she came downstairs and found Landon in the kitchen preparing dinner. "You're a very good cook," she commented, watching him season the food with precision. "I learned out of necessity. When you live alone for 3 years, you either learn to cook or live on takeout." 3 years, Landon tensed for a moment, as he always did when the conversation touched on his past. Since I ended my last relationship." Maya didn't press. She was learning that Landon opened up at his own pace, and forcing things only made him shut down more. They had dinner talking about light topics, but Maya noticed how Landon seemed more relaxed, more present. The serious, distant man from the first day had given way to someone warmer, more approachable. "Maya," he said when they finished eating, "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Are you happy here, truly?" Maya studied him for a moment. There was insecurity in his question, as if he still couldn't believe anyone would want to stay. "I am," she replied simply, "happier than I've been in a long time." "Even having to put up with me every day," he joked, but Maya sensed the seriousness behind the joke. "Especially having to put up with you every day." Landon smiled, a genuine smile that completely transformed his face. "Good," he said, "because I'm happier than I've been in a long time too." That night, when Maya went up to bed, she paused at her bedroom window. Down below she could see Landon on the porch looking at the garden she had transformed. He looked at peace, relaxed in a way she had never seen before. Emma stirred in her crib, making a small sound. Maya went over and saw that her daughter was smiling in her sleep, as if having happy dreams. She had been having happy dreams lately too. Dreams of a life that included family breakfasts, afternoons working together in the garden, evenings talking after Emma was asleep. Dreams that, for the first time in a long time, seemed possible to become reality. 2 weeks had passed since Maya and Emma moved into the mansion, and Saturday morning brought a different energy with it. Landon didn't have to work, and for the first time in years he was looking forward to a day off. Maya was kneeling in the side garden, planting a row of white lilies that had arrived the day before. Emma was sitting on the blanket beside her, playing with a toy watering can Landon had bought during the week. "Can I help?" Landon asked, approaching with 2 cups of coffee. "Always," Maya replied, accepting the coffee with a smile. "These lilies will need a lot of care at first." Landon knelt beside her, picking up a small trowel. They worked in silence for a few minutes, a comfortable rhythm they had developed over the past few weeks. Emma watched them intently, babbling comments only she understood. "Maya," Landon said suddenly, stopping his digging, "can I tell you something?" "Of course." He was silent for a moment, as if organizing his thoughts. "Before you two got here, my life was empty. I would wake up, go to work, come home, have dinner alone, and go to sleep. Every day the same. Weekends were worse because I didn't even have work to distract me." Maya stopped planting and looked at him. There was something vulnerable in his voice, a raw honesty she rarely heard. "I thought I was fine like that," he continued. "I thought I didn't need anything else. That work was enough, that keeping my distance from people was safer." Emma made a little noise and reached her hand out towards Landon. He automatically let her hold his finger, smiling at her before continuing to speak. "But now waking up and knowing you're here is what gives my days meaning." knowing I'll have coffee with you, that Emma will smile when she sees me, that you'll tell me about the plants you're caring for." He paused, running his free hand through his hair. "It's like I was living in black and white, and you two brought color to everything." Maya felt a tightness in her chest. They weren't direct declarations, but she could hear what he wasn't saying. She could see it in his eyes, in the way he looked at her and Emma, that something profound had changed for him too. "Landon," she began, but he shook his head. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know." They went back to work, but the air between them was charged with something new. Maya could feel his glances, the way their hands accidentally touched when reaching for the same tools, how he found excuses to stay closer. Emma started to get restless, and Landon immediately stopped what he was doing to pick her up. "Someone wants attention," he said, lifting her into the air and making her laugh. "Careful, she just ate," Maya warned, but she was smiling. "She can handle herself," Landon said, placing Emma on his shoulders. "Right, Emma, you're a brave girl." Emma loved being on Landon's shoulders. From there she could see everything, and he always walked carefully through the garden, showing her the different plants. "See these roses, Emma?" he would say, pointing to a flower bed. "Your mum planted them. She has a magic touch." Maya watched the two of them together, and with each passing day, it became harder to imagine their lives without Landon. He was no longer the boss who had reluctantly given her a chance. He was, a friend, family, something more. "Maya," Landon called to her, still with Emma on his shoulders, "do you think she'd like to see the greenhouse?" "The greenhouse?" "At the back of the property. My mother built it to grow orchids. It's a bit neglected, but it still works. I'd love to see it." They walked through the gardens together, Emma delighted with the ride on Landon's shoulders. The greenhouse was hidden behind a cluster of trees, an elegant structure of glass and iron. "It's beautiful," Maya said as they entered. The place was dusty, but you could still see the love that had been put into it. Wooden benches ran along the sides, and a sophisticated irrigation system was still installed on the ceiling. "She used to spend hours here," Landon said, lowering Emma to the floor. "She said it was her sanctuary." Emma immediately began to explore, crawling around the benches and investigating every corner. Maya followed her, keeping her safe as she explored. "You could restore this," Maya suggested. "Start growing orchids again." "I don't know anything about orchids. I can learn." "We can learn together." The word "together" hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Landon looked at her intensely, as if trying to read her thoughts. "Would you like that? To have another project?" "I'd like anything that meant staying here longer." The words slipped out before Maya could filter them. She blushed immediately, realizing what she had just admitted. "Maya, I know our situation is complicated," she said quickly. "I know it started as a work arrangement, and that maybe you feel obligated to keep us here because Emma got sick, but—" "Stop," Landon said, approaching her. "Just stop." Emma had found an old hose and was trying to chew on it. Landon gently picked her up, taking the hose from her mouth and offering her an empty pot to play with instead. "Maya, look at me," he said. She looked up, meeting his eyes. There was something different there, an intensity that made her heart race. "You're not an employee," he said softly. "Not anymore. Not for a long time. You are part of my life now. Part of who I am." "Landon, no, let me finish. I spent 3 years convincing myself I didn't need anyone, that it was easier, safer to live alone, that love was a weakness, that opening up to someone would only lead to pain." He paused, running a hand over his face. "But you two changed everything. Emma with her smiles, you with your strength, your kindness. You showed me that I was just existing, not living." Maya felt tears well up in her eyes. There was so much affection in his voice, so much honesty, she could barely breathe. "And now I understand," he continued. "Love isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing there is. It's what makes me want to be better, what gives me the courage to open up again." Emma chose that moment to babble "Mama," reaching her little arms out to Maya. She automatically picked her up, but her eyes never left Landon's. "What are you saying?" she whispered. "I'm saying I love you," Landon replied simply. "I love you both. I love how you sing to Emma in the morning, how you care for every plant, how you've turned this house into a home. I love how Emma laughs when she sees me, how she trusts me, how you both have reminded me what it feels like to be happy." Tears were now streaming freely down Maya's face. She had dreamed of this moment but never truly believed it could happen. "I love you too," she whispered back. Landon stepped closer, reaching out to touch her face. Emma was between them, but that only made the moment more perfect, more complete. "Really?" he asked, as if he couldn't believe it. "Really? For weeks now? Maybe since the day you bought Emma the teddy bear." Landon laughed, a rich, joyful laugh. "And I was trying not to fall in love, but it was impossible. You're impossible to resist." "We're impossible to resist," Maya corrected, kissing Emma's forehead. "True, you're a complete package." They left the greenhouse together, Emma in Maya's arms, Landon by their side. The sun was high now, bathing the garden in golden light. "So, what do we do now?" Maya asked. Now we live," Landon answered. "We live like a family." They walked back to the house, stopping occasionally for Landon to show different plants to Emma, or for Maya to point out areas that still needed work. It was natural, comfortable, as if it had always been the three of them together. When they reached the main garden, Landon stopped suddenly. "Maya," he said. "Yes." Instead of answering, he stepped closer and hugged her, a warm, enveloping hug that included Emma between them. Maya let herself melt into his embrace, feeling for the first time in a long time that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "I can't imagine life without you two anymore," Landon murmured against her hair. "I don't want to." "Then don't," Maya replied. "We're here. We're going to stay here." Emma babbled something that sounded suspiciously like "Dada," making them both laugh. "I think she approves," Maya said. "I think so too." They stood there, holding each other for a long time, the three of them together under the morning sun, surrounded by the garden that Maya had transformed with love and care. It was a perfect moment, the kind of moment you keep in your heart forever. Landon Pierce, the man who had sworn never to open himself up to love again, finally understood that he had found his strength. And Maya Brooks, the single mother who had fought alone for so long, finally found her home. It wasn't just a place to live. It was where they belonged, the three of them together, like a real family. The garden around them flourished under Maya's loving care, but she knew the real blossoming was happening within them. Three hearts that had found each other, three lives that were now intertwined like the roots of the plants growing around them. Strong, lasting, and full of promise for the future. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones.